Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the pretty staggering reality of enterprise AI. And we're going to separate that flashy boardroom hype from the incredibly chaotic reality happening on the ground. We're exploring the massive failure of AI in big corporate companies, why so many organizations are suddenly being forced to just return to business basics, and what this massive shift actually means for the corporate world as a whole. So check out the sheer, mind-boggling scale of this disconnect. We're talking about a projected $1.5 trillion being poured into AI. Trillion with a T. Yet, despite all that cash, a shocking 85% of these projects are failing spectacularly. We are literally looking at the widest gap between investment velocity and actual value realization in the history of modern enterprise technology. How exactly did we get here? Well, let's trace the timeline. We started with the utopian promises and peak inflated expectations back in 2024. Then we hit the massive project abandonment phase in 2025. And that leads us directly into the sobering reality check of 2026, a period analysts are literally calling the year of AI disillusionment.
All right, let's get right into section 1, the era of AI disillusionment.
Industry analysts are putting out a pretty stark warning right now. They project that over 40% of agentic AI projects are just going to be canceled by 2027. Why? Well, because most companies are completely stuck in this endless loop of early-stage experiments and proofs of concept. Sure, they look fantastic in a controlled test environment, but only a tiny, tiny fraction, just 5%, actually scale to achieve rapid revenue acceleration. The rest? They just quietly burn through the budget. A massive study by the Rand Corporation actually pinned down 5 root causes for why AI implementations fail. And here's the wild part. Out of these 5 major points, only one, inadequate training data, is a strictly technical problem. The other 4, they're entirely human, strategic, and organizational issues. Basically, companies are rushing out to buy high-tech solutions for business problems they haven't even clearly defined yet. Which brings us to Section 2, exposing broken business basics. Think about it like this. When an AI spits out completely confident-looking nonsense in a revenue projection, it's almost always because the underlying sales data was just never validated to begin with. When an AI payroll agent breaks down, it's usually because the human rules were misconfigured from day one. Human workers are honestly great at quietly patching over bad processes, but AI acts like a giant blinding spotlight. It exposes absolutely every pre-existing human workaround. Recent studies on enterprise workflows are showing us that deploying AI at scale requires highly structured, auditable control points. You really can't just take a raw, massive language model, throw it at a messy business process, and expect magic to happen. It doesn't work that way. You need specialized computation, clear routing, and explicit boundaries. It really requires a hard return to rigorous system architecture. Moving on to Section 3, the comprehension debt trap. So there's this brand new, really sneaky organizational cost that pops up when teams deploy AI faster than they can actually understand it. Researchers are calling it comprehension debt. What they're finding is that AI tools are letting teams build these highly sophisticated systems, but the teams completely lack the conceptual foundation to maintain them. They have working code or working process, but they literally don't understand how it functions under the hood. To put that into perspective, let's compare it to something we already know. Unlike traditional tech debt, where developers know they took a shortcut to save time and plan to fix it later, comprehension debt is a fundamental knowledge gap. The system works, but the human understanding is totally missing. It is incredibly dangerous because it pumps out these working prototypes that completely mask underlying human incompetence. You can actually spot comprehension debt creeping in if you look for these 4 symptoms. First, fragility. The systems just break if you even touch them. Second, AI dependency, where you literally need an AI just to fix the AI. Third, skill stagnation, because employees just copy-paste and stop learning how to solve problems. And fourth, false confidence. All of these create this massive dependency loop. So instead of AI acting as a learning ladder, it becomes a trap that permanently stunts human skill development. Let's pivot a bit to Section 4, digital fatigue and AI overload. Far from making our jobs effortless, AI has kind of just changed the shape of our exhaustion. The growing problem now is approval fatigue. Employees are basically trapped in a permanent state of quality assurance. They're constantly supervising, judging, and correcting machine outputs. Your brain is forced into this continuous state of cognitive negotiation, which, as you can imagine,
is just incredibly draining.
And this creates a massive, massive disconnect in the corporate hierarchy. On one side, you've got 77% of managers looking at dashboards, seeing faster task completion, and thinking, wow, efficiency is skyrocketing. But on the exact same token, 88% of the heavy AI users are reporting increased burnout. Those perceived productivity gains, they're actively being fueled by intense, hidden cognitive overload. This leads us to the big, essential question every company has to face right now. With unapproved shadow AI creeping into workflows and employees constantly context switching between different copilots, prompters, and dashboards, we've essentially created a workplace where the human brain never gets to fully power down. Productivity just becomes performative, purely to keep up with the machine.
Okay, Section 5, returning to business fundamentals. So, how do we fix it? Well, industry best practices point to a very specific resource allocation model. Organizations really need to dedicate 70% of their efforts to redefining the people and the human workflows. Then 20% goes to the technology infrastructure, and only 10% goes to the actual algorithms. You absolutely have to fix the process before you buy the tech. Ultimately, technology just can't fix bad data, period. To get actual return on investment out of AI, companies have to return to basics. This means strategic consolidation. It means fixing fragmented data foundations, ensuring your data is completely unified and trusted, and relentlessly stripping away cognitive clutter so that employees can, actually think.
And finally, Section 6, rebirth of middle management. 20%. Now that is a serious warning. Analysts predict that by 2026, 20% of organizations will use AI to eliminate more than half of their middle management roles. That threatens an absolutely devastating loss of institutional knowledge across the board. Look, stripping away these layers purely to save a few bucks in the short term is incredibly dangerous. Gutting middle management carelessly risks what some CEOs are openly calling a white-collar massacre. It destroys career pathways and just rips out the organizational spine of a company. Automation doesn't eliminate the need for management, it fundamentally changes what management actually is. So instead of just tracking tasks and coordinating schedules, the stuff AI can do in its sleep, managers have to evolve into 3 critical roles. First, they need to be orchestrators who seamlessly blend AI speed with real human creativity. Second, agents of change who can completely redesign broken workflows. And third, they need to be coaches who actively help their teams reskill so they can survive and thrive in this new era. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really provocative question to think about. Does your AI let you think clearly, or is it just making noise? Because ultimately, the organizations that are really going to thrive in the corporate world won't be the ones that just bought the flashiest, most expensive AI tools. They will be the ones that prioritize human cognitive sustainability, and the ones that truly understand that getting the absolute business basics right is the only way to make the technology work for us, not the other way around. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep questioning the hype.